Okay, what I want to look at today briefly is gravity. Now, some persons don't look at gravity as being much, but in fact, gravity has influenced our world in ways that we cannot imagine. It has influenced the way we live, it has influenced our science, it has influenced our understanding of where we live, not just on Earth, but throughout the universe. Now, we know gravity as that force which keeps us to the Earth. It prevents us from floating off in space. And our understanding of this mechanism has changed somewhat over the decades as we understand more, even though it is believed that there are still many things that we don't understand. Now, one of the first and full concept of what gravity was an object of mass that pulls things to itself. So, and the equation was that the greater the mass, the greater the pull of gravity. So, for instance, we know the pull of gravity that we have here on Earth that keeps us connected to the Earth. If you go to the moon, which is a smaller body than the Earth, then the gravitational pull is lighter. So if you're walking on the moon, you could walk on bounds where each step could be, say, for instance, 100 feet long. You'd be literally floating in the air. Whereas if you went to one of our super giant planets, for instance, Jupiter, the largest planet in our solar system, then you would experience something totally different. Now, even though Jupiter is a gas giant, which means that it is not a rocky planet like ours, but it is actually made up of mostly of gas with they believe an iron core. The because of its size, the gravitational force that is on it, that you couldn't stand on Jupiter. The gravitational pull would be so much that you'd probably be crushed, couldn't take a step. And more likely you would end up dying from that gravitational force. Gravity is also what keeps us connected to the round Earth. There are persons who wonder, and if you know about flat earthers who claim that gravity doesn't exist and that on a round Earth we should be floating off into space. But gravity keeps us grounded. So while we here in Jamaica are looking up and feeling quite fine, not floating off, and you have persons on the other side of the globe, say for instance in Australia or China, which is way over on the other side of the earth from us, in a sense, facing the other direction. They're not floating off either. They're not falling off from the bottom of the world as some people view it. Right? Because no matter where on the globe you go, you're looking up. Because gravity pulls us towards the center of the earth. So we here in Jamaica are being pulled towards the center of the earth, while persons on the other side of the globe are also being pulled towards the center of the earth. All right. So your perspective is always away, so that you're looking up, and up is always up, no matter what side of the globe you're on. Now, one of the things that gravity has helped to affect is our understanding of the universe. It is gravity which caused scientists to realize, for instance, that all the matter that they were able to see in the known universe, and when we say matter, we're talking about all the stars that they could see, all the gas that they could see, and all the planets that they could perceive that was there, not by direct line of sight, but by other means that we won't get into at this point in time. But they were able to determine that the amount of mass that was visible was not enough, were not providing enough gravitational pull to keep all of these things together. For instance, the total body number of stars in the universe, in our solar system, and in our particular galaxy, the Milky Way, there is not enough stars and gas and so forth that should actually keep galaxies together. By right, they should be, especially considering they're spinning at a high speed, they should be uh, floating off into space at high speed. It led them to realize that the number of matter that is observable represented only 1 to 5% of what was actually visible. Something was accounted for the gravitational pull that they could not see. And it is these things that they could not perceive what was there, could not understand what was there, that eventually led to the theory about dark matter. Now, what is dark matter? Dark matter is supposed to be something that does not interact with the rest of the universe except through gravitational pull. It was not something you could see. It was matter that was invisible. It did not interact with anything else in any way. Things would pass through it. It would pass through things. They have absolutely no idea what dark matter is. They only believe that it existed because they believe that there was something else that was providing the gravitational force that helped to keep galaxies together. Now, this also led to a way of explaining something else that was unexplainable, the creation of stars. Now, to this day, science does not understand fully how stars are made. One of the things is that the amount of gravitational force that is required to create a star is unexplainable in terms of the physics that we see today. What is it? How they describe how a star should be formed is that you have a number of a cloud of gas, which gets heated and therefore creates its own gravity as it masses together and starts to collapse. As it reaches a point of collapse, then eventually it causes the internal forces to heat up and eventually it will form a star. The problem with this theory is that when the gases begin to heat up, they begin a pushback, which at opposite force, which gravity should not be able to overcome. So in theory, by the simple physics that we know, a star is impossible to form. One of the ways that we used to overcome this problem was the insertion of dark matter, with the concept that dark matter helped provide some of the gravitational force that helped to create stars. Along with the theory that the second wave of stars in our universe was formed from the explosion of previous stars, the earlier stars in the universe, which they don't explain and cannot explain how those came about. But we see that the force of gravity has been so much that it has helped to create a field of science that to this day is still expanding. Now, the concept of the mass of a planet that is causing things to pull towards it, not just towards its center, but it is pulling other things around it. For instance, the sun is using its gravity to keep all the planets rotating around the sun within our solar system. And the center of a galaxy is keeping all the millions of stars in the galaxy circling around it and not floating off in space. But there is also another concept of gravity that, that has changed somewhat, that has created a new theory, which is a variation of this. And this theory is the concept of a mass of body that is actually creating a sink in what they call the fabric of space. The best way to explain this is if you take a blanket and you stretch it out, right? So it is flat, and you stretch it out so it's taut and flat. And then you take a ball, let's say an iron ball. The iron balls of different weight, and you place on this blanket. When you place the iron ball on the blanket, it will cause where that ball is to sink. And then if you have something, another lighter ball rolling around it, it will roll around that sink, rolling towards that greater mass that is sinking the blanket. And this is how scientists now view space, that space is like a blanket and the various objects that are in space are creating sinks in the blanket. And that is one of the things that is keeping things rolling towards them and not so much the mass. The only thing that the mass does is that it creates a deeper sink. And therefore, things will roll more towards it. Right? Now, this is gravity. Now, gravity is one of the laws of science, in which things that are observable are repeatable and it can be tested and so forth. So it is basically unchangeable. But gravity has been shown to be so powerful that gravity actually does something that was previously thought in science that could not be done, which was to bend the light. It is now known that gravity is strong enough to bend the light. And one of the things in space that is said to create the strongest gravitational pull is a black hole, which is so powerful. It is formed from what they believe to be the collapsing of a star after it has exploded, in which the gravitational forces get so powerful as it condenses to such a fine point that it creates such a hypermass that not even light is able to escape from it, creating that appearance of a black hole. Now, all of these things shows that gravity is extremely powerful. One of the things I believe, and this is my belief, is that we still don't know and understand fully all that gravity does. Right? Because scientists will talk about what is happening in our solar system and so forth. But when you have, for instance, a star that is 1,000,000 times the size of our sun, or even these black holes, which we can really see how close to them, we still don't have an idea of how powerful gravity can be and what it can actually do right at source. We don't know. One of the things that science looks at is today that gravity and the pull that it has, coupled with the speed of light, can actually create time warps in which you can actually time travel going to the future. But not how you think. It's not that you are able to jump to the future, but they believe that, for instance, if you travel away from the Earth at certain speeds, at the speed of light, and all of these things, you will appear to age much slower than if you remain here on Earth. Not a theory that I disprove, because I believe that is one of the things that is probably responsible for the appearance that the stars are millions of years away and the creation of starlight and travel of starlight time. But the point is, gravity is all around us. It keeps us grounded, and it has helped to create good knowledge, yes, but our misunderstanding of it and failing to recognize what God has done in creation. That we see something, we can't explain. Why is it that 1% of the matter in the universe, we only see and understand that 1% of the matter? What else is keeping? Why doesn't galaxies float away? Why do not stars and planets float off into space when the matter that is there is only responsible for 1% of the gravity? Right? The Bible says that God keeps all things in his hands. He keeps everything in place. But because we don't understand that, because of our lack of understanding of gravity and what God has done, we create something which is actually nothing. Dark matter and dark energy. Things that you cannot see, cannot test. And therefore, all that you have to verify that it is there is your lack of understanding.